This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
One of the greatest things you can do for the overall quality of your life and maintaining excellent health throughout your lifetime is exercising. And for me, my exercise of choice is running. Hi, I'm Carl Gruber, the author of the short ebook, The Jogger to Runner Book. I've been a runner for over 40 years, and I've completed 78 marathons. Now, running is my passion, and that is why I wrote this short, concise, and easy-to-use ebook to help you become a runner too. So if you're now walking or just slowly jogging but have the desire to begin running, the Jogger to Runner book is now available for just $1.99. Just scan the QR code you see on the screen now to get your copy. You don't have to run a marathon or even race, just run for the joy of it and run for a better quality of life. That's the Jogger to Runner book. Get your copy today. Hi friends, I'm your host Carl Gruber, and this is the show World Awakenings, a fast track to enlightenment. The show that asks the all-important question, why now are the people of the world awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening? This is episode number 151, and yet another amazing guest, so let's get right to it and meet him right now. Our guest is Faust Ruggiero, and he is our featured guest. His professional career as a psychologist covers almost 40 years as he established new and exciting cutting-edge counseling programs in his pursuit of professional excellence and personal life enhancement. Now, he's a published research author, clinical trainer, and a therapist who has worked in settings that have included clinics for deaf children, prisons, nursing homes, substance abuse centers, inpatient facilities, major corporations, both national and international, and now as the president of the Community of Psychological Center in Bangor, Pennsylvania. In that capacity, he has developed the Process Way of Life counseling program, and he has developed an amazing book, a formal text presented in the book called Fix Yourself Handbook. So welcome, Faust. I love that you're on the show. Thank you so much.
Hey, it's great to be here, Carl. Thanks for asking me.
Well, I love your name, Faust Ruggiero. That sounds more like a rock star.
That's in a fantasy life somewhere, Carl.
Yeah, after this, you're probably going to be practicing a guitar in the background.
There you go.
So, well, there's so much to talk about. I mean, your book is absolutely fascinating. Like I said, I'm a seeker of knowledge and enlightenment. And so I'm curious as to what led you onto the path of becoming a psychologist when you were just finding your way as a young person. Where was that interest coming from?
It's one of those things, Carl, that was born inside me. I was a young fellow that just loved to listen to people. Didn't even know it. This just was natural. And then, when you do that, people start coming in your direction and they talk and you listen and they tell you your problems. And by the time I was in high school, I had a pretty good idea psychology was going to be where I was going to go. So I just took off, went through all the, undergrad and grad school and all that stuff. And here I am today.
Yeah, lots of schooling, and it sure looks like it paid off for you. But, and you mentioned to me earlier before we came on here that you've been following this show some. So, the theme is spirituality, metaphysics, enlightenment topics. But so it would seem a bit unusual to have a psychologist on this program. But the fact is that our lives here on earth, we have to live in a body with an individual personality. And that's where you come in as a professional psychologist to help people live happy, healthy, and enjoyable lives, right?
Well, it is, and, as I was going through all the literature when I was getting ready to write the book, I thought, geez, people are getting some great information out there. They put it out chapter after chapter, but they never say, okay, based on this, let's do this. And that's where that training comes in. I've always been like you, I've always been the in search of person. Give me something a little deeper, give me something a little more expansive. I like that. But when you're going to help people, if you can't say to them, now that we said all of this, you need to do this, it can't become applied. So I think that's kind of the gap I fill. I like all the metaphysical stuff, but I like to break it down to the point where people can understand how to apply that stuff.
Well, and two, we mentioned you have this fabulous book called Fix Yourself Handbook. So, how did that come about and why that title?
When I was researching what I wanted to do, it came up with all different titles, but I wanted to do something, actually broke the mold, if you will, when it came to doing self-help books. As opposed to saying, here's the book I'm going to write. It's on anxiety, depression, which are later books I've written. But the first one, I wanted it to cover a lot of topics. So there are 36 chapters, and there are 36 different topics in there. Publisher said, no way, we can't publish this. There's too many topics. No one will read it, that type of thing. But we went carried through and did it anyway. And lo and behold, here we are 4 years later. It's done real well. So I really wanted it to be something that anyone could read. Didn't matter what sex or gender or age or race or whatever. I wanted it to be for everyone. I wanted, if you can read and you're in high school through geriatrics, I wanted this book to apply to you. So it was written with that in mind.
Yeah, and what I've read of it so far, it sure seems it's pretty concise and exact, and you have some self-help and actions that you can take at the end of each chapter, which I think is really necessary because, myself just thinking when I'm reading, I'll highlight things too, but it's nice to have that little summary at the end. Oh yeah, maybe I can try this and try that. But, what I like too is in your writing, you're about the individual taking responsibility for their own decisions, thoughts, and life. Why is it that so many people don't do these things?
Accountability leads to the necessity for action, consistent action. It holds us into a structured regime, and we don't like that. You can see it's anywhere, this country, anywhere where it's, industrial countries, you can see that we progress to the point where we say, well, it's about me. Now, I don't like that, and I don't want to do that. You're going to make me do what? Something as simple as, let's get your body in shape. I can't eat that. There's the diet I should follow. You want me to work out every day or every other day or whatever it is, and I got to stick to this? And that's why people don't do it, because they don't like being held accountable. But that's where all the gain is, when you stretch yourself, when you do some things you don't want to do and you get out of your safe places, that's where you learn.
Well, why is it that people don't like being held accountable? Does it have to do with the current consciousness of the world and the way the modern world itself is functioning?
Yeah, it does. Instead of a collective unconscious, so to speak, where we're all kind of trying to move in this somewhere in the same direction. Everyone, we've adopted this individualization thing. I am the master of my own body, my own mind. Don't tell me what to do. I can do whatever I want to do. But unfortunately, that puts you in a kind of a rebellious tone, if you will, and then you stop looking at things that can really expand your mind. And then we're all in this kind of divisionary way that we're doing things, and well, if you said it's black, I'm saying it's white, and if you don't like white, then I don't like you. Geez, I mean, we're stuck in all these external things, and that's the other part of it. It's all external. We work, unfortunately, as a culture from the outside in. We should be working from the inside out. We strengthen here first, then we can deal with everything else. But we don't do that. We're so conscious about what we need to be or think we need to be.
Well, and you know this well that many people understand that via the media and whatever form of communication it comes to, that we're actually programmed in so many ways. I know that Dr. Bruce Lipton, author of spontaneous evolution. He talks about this quite a bit, that we basically, until we're at the time of 7 years old, we're in a hypnotic trance state of, I forget, theta brainwaves, and we're really actually hypnotized and programmed in the way we're supposed to be in the world. But I think what you have to offer helps us break out of that mold.
Well, you want to give people the information. That's what I like to do. My chapters are short, 6, 7 pages, 8 pages, whatever. And then, okay, here's all that information. It's capsulized. We're not going to get you running all over the place on information. Now, if you can do these things, you're going to start breaking that mold, and you're not compromising your position in the world. You're strengthening it. That's what you're doing. And that's what I want people to understand. You do what I ask you to do. You're not going to be this robot. You're not going to be this person that can't do anything. You're going to strengthen it, and you're going to have a ton of options in your life that you've never had before.
In many ways too, being a certified life coach, when I deal with a client, many people are surprised when after talk to them for a while, they go, "What, you mean I have the power to do this?" Most of the world, I believe, individually and collectively, basically feels disempowered.
Well, they do, and when you and the proof of that is you give someone something new, not lots of difficult, just new, and the first thing they do is they go, I don't know. I've always said it, and I do it at home with my wife. I do it with the people I counsel, with friends. They'll bring something up, and I'll say, let's look at that. That statement doesn't say I'm going to do it. It just simply says that I'm not going to access all that negative energy that keeps me resisting and not compromising. I want to say, yeah, sure, it's a possible option. Give me the information. What's the worst that can happen? I get new information. I may or may not want to apply it in my life, but I may have, a couple sentences that I never thought about before. I may put them somewhere in my world and enhance the quality and my ability to do things in my world. That's what I want.
Well, again, we're speaking to Faust Ruggiero, his awesome book, one of his books called Fix Yourself Roadmap. Actually, one thing that, I did mention this already, what I like about your book, it is like a concise roadmap for taking control of your life. But what I like is much of it matches up to my spiritual studies, in which we each project much of our own inner issues onto other people, places, and things. And in doing this projection, we think that we get rid of whatever it is we're projecting. But in truth, that those issues that we think we're projecting never really leave us. They stay with us, right?
That's the problem. It's a diversionary way of doing things. I don't want this. I'm not going to look at it. I'm going to use my powers of defense and my denial and my rationalization, and I'm going to intellectualize it, and then I'll throw it in your direction, and you got it. Now I never have to deal with it. Again, you never change whatever it is that you want to work with it. Sometimes people will say, well, am I broken? No, you're not broken, but you're not, the world's dynamic. It keeps on changing, and you want to keep up with that, and you keep on using the same strategies over and over again. You get caught behind, and and the thing is, you never realize that. And then, somewhere later, we get to our age, so to speak, even in your 50s, you say, I'm not sure what the heck I'm doing here. Well, yeah, you haven't been monitoring it. You haven't been moving with the flow. You haven't been making the changes. So I'd like to get people to kind of step out of those little safe places. I call them safe prisons. That's what they realize. They keep you in there safe, but you're locked in there, and now you're afraid to move out of it. And that's another thing we're dealing with in this world. We're afraid to move out of our safe places.
Wow.
There are no monsters out there that are going to come and eat us up. They're just not.
That's insightful. Safe prisons. Actually, that's scary, actually, when you think about it, and people accept it.
They do. And it's just the antithesis of all the power that we have inside us. I keep telling people, if you're willing to work with those 4 attributes, your physicality, your intellect, your emotion, your spirituality, it creates a balance in your life, and that balance produces the power. That's where you get the power from. because all those attributes are operating the way they're supposed to, closer in balance. And balance doesn't mean you get to some high point. On a scale of 1 to 10, I keep telling people you can be a 2, but everything's in balance. That's okay. You get to a 10 or whatever however you want to define that, wonderful. But let's just get the whole thing balanced. That's the whole thrust of the program.
Well, and just quickly, I wanted to correct myself. I realized I said your book was Fix Yourself Roadmap. It's actually Fix Yourself Handbook. Sorry about that.
No problem. It is that a roadmap, a blueprint, if you will, to be able to make this happen.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, one of your book's chapters is titled I over E, Brain Power over Emotional Madness. Now, can you tell us more about this and why is this important? Because emotion is an incredibly powerful tool that most people don't seem to know how to channel properly.
And you just said it. That's the whole thrust of that chapter, of that whole philosophy, is to channel it the proper way. What I ask people to do is take a step back. Don't emote quickly. We react quickly. We don't want anything coming in we don't want there. So we react, we get emotional. But what we're emoting over often is irrational information. It came quick. We didn't take time to look it over. The mind is a powerful, powerful organ if we give it the time to do what it's supposed to do, the way it's supposed to do it. Get the information, get the facts, begin to look at it and put it in some order. Now, when you emote, you're emoting over the big picture, the whole story, so to speak. But typically, we emote fast, 3, 4, 5 seconds. We're in already. And by that time, what we told the brain is don't bother. I got this. My emotions are taking this. I'll shut it right down or do whatever I'm going to do with it. And if the brain could speak to the emotions at that point, it would say, wait a minute, let me organize this. I'll get it ready for you. Then you can respond the way you want to based on the facts. We're not doing that. And that's where we get in trouble.
And I think what you're saying about emotion is so important because one of the key things that we learn as students of the law of attraction is emotion, with everything being energy, and our thoughts and our emotions are amped up energy. I think Esther Hicks, who does the teachings of Abraham, one of the things she talks about that emotions are like throwing gasoline on fire. And so when you're manifesting something, via your emotion, well, it could be good or bad. So you have to watch where you're putting that emotion, because you could be channeling it to very negative, bad circumstances.
And you hit right on one of the cores of what I teach, which is energy distribution. The old thing was, the good guy on this shoulder and the bad guy here. Where do you want to put your energy? But in your body, energy is being distributed all day long. Some of it's unconscious, some of it we can consciously apply. The more we learn to consciously apply our energy and put it in the right places, the better off we are. And energy supply to emotions quickly is misapplication of that energy. If you just take a step back, get the facts, now you're applying the energy to your brain, which is your control center. And again, your emotions are housed there. That's what makes it so difficult, I think. Is, we have this idea that the emotions somehow got down here, they're in our heart. No, they're not. They're in our brain. That's where everything's processed like that. So it can quickly, and the brain processes, in milliseconds, so to speak. So something happens where that brain is going to process. It just depends on how we trained it to process. And it's all about neurological training, about training the brain, and that's what learning is. It's repetition over time. We keep on training and say energy going, let me train my brain to respond this way, and energy to my thought processes first, my emotions second. If we keep on doing that, that's what successful people do. That's what happy people do.
Yeah, and again, what you say is so important because even as an advanced student of what you're talking about here, or and all the spiritual principles and things that I understand and know and practice and live, I mean, in the moment, just like that, all of a sudden something could hit you that you're all of a sudden you feel that emotion flare up. But if you can do what you say and train it and say, I don't know if you'll ever get rid of it, but at least you can control it so that it, as we said, channel it in a proper way of using it.
You know, I get that question often. Something happens, it's emotional, and I'm with someone, even my kids or my wife, and they'll say, "You didn't react to that at all." And I said, "Because my brain isn't trained to do that." So when everyone went, "Oh my God," and I said, "What next? Give me more information," because I want to respond too. I don't want, I'm not, out there. I'm not brain dead here. I want to respond, but I don't want to get myself flowing in the wrong direction. Then I got to pull myself back and start the process and maybe make amends and say, I'm sorry for this. Or gee, now I got to start this over, because if I would have just taken the time in the beginning, everything would have been much better. I always liken it to, you get that, that's the erector set in the mail, and you're going to build that car, and you decided not to use the instructions. Well, you know what's going to happen. Well, that's what happens when the brain perceives something and you react emotionally. You didn't give your brain enough time to get the information, give the instruction, and now you know how to react to it. It's just training your brain. So now, not only do, if something happens, can I pull back? When it happens over and over again, I can say, I'm not, let me see what I'm going to do. We got up this morning and to a note that across the country, the cell phones were down today.
Mm.
And I got people calling saying, what are we going to do? I said, nothing. So I said, what do you mean? I said, well, do you have a cell tower in your backyard? Do you? And they started laughing. I said, when I grew up, we didn't have cell phones. We functioned just fine, you know, and everything will be okay. And now 5 or 6 hours later, it's all better. And these other people put their minds and their bodies through something, and I had energy to, use somewhere else. And that's the other key. When it's not just you misuse it, you use it up. So
Mm.
now you want it available for something else, you have your storehouses are depleted. So I like to keep it distributed where it's supposed to go.
I like that idea, but not, I don't need instructions. You must have seen me trying to put together my IKEA bed when it showed
You
up. Oh man, and after a while I go, okay, I better get the instructions out. But yeah, I just absolutely everything you're saying is just so useful and helpful, and I love it. So, but I am curious. This shows about spirituality, enlightenment, etc. I'm curious how you see spirituality or conscious connection to our source, to our higher self, playing a part in a person fixing themselves.
Yep. As you read through that entire first book, the Fix Yourself Handbook, we talk about balance, but the goal is to get to higher order living. That's where the spirit is. And the goal of it is something I call pure love. Pure love is what comes from the soul. This is where we get so confused in how we love. That's why we put conditions on things. That's why we want someone to balance us and complete us, all those sorts of things. When you get to the point that you balance those attributes, that your energy goes where it's supposed to go, you get up every day and things are in balance. It's what Buddhists would call nirvana, so to speak. Then you get to a point where you can feel the soul, and I do a chapter on that. I do a chapter on faith. And, we talk about people, as soon as you say faith, people say, oh, I don't do the God thing. And I said, well, no, hold on. I said, there's concrete faith. It's an evolutionary process. You have faith in things going right. Your lights going on, your spouse, you have faith they're going to be there for you. That's concrete. Spiritual faith is more of the abstract. And I just tell people, give it a try. It's another process in your life, like anything else I've written about or anyone else teaches. Try it on for size. Get all the information, then decide where you want to go. And as I do, if you're a person of faith, the very process of acquisition, of searching will bring you to your soul. Because that's the only way you can do it. We don't spiritually search with our brain. Our brain is a fact finder and wants concrete information. That's not what the soul is about. That's why the balance can occur, because the soul is working with abstract phenomena. It's working with uh, intangible energy. So that's why the balance can occur. Those four attributes, you need the soul in the picture. So I always tell people, try it on for size.
And I like your idea because I think that we can consciously direct our thoughts and our energy to search for that higher self, that higher source, that connection that helps us to live that happier, healthy, fixed life. And unfortunately, I've had many, I shouldn't say many, but a few of what they call NDEers, near death experience guests on here. And many of them just, their life was crap and they didn't believe in anything. And so they had to almost die and go and connect to source, but they come back, oh man, it's real. It really is. I mean, I've read a number of times people who are atheists and had a near death experience and came back, oh, I was wrong. And I'm not here to be judgmental about that at all, but I mean, why wait until you have to have a near death experience when you have the conscious choice to choose it?
The answer to that's very simple, actually. The near-death experiences clears all of external life out. External life is what affects the soul, what diverts our energy away from it. Even the way religion, if you will, portrays God, he's out there somewhere.
Mhm.
That's all in here. So it's all internal. When those near life experiences, someone passes away and traumatizes you, and nothing else makes sense in your life. That's what puts you into a point to look inside and start, being introspective and reevaluating. And that's a function of your soul at that point. That's of the essence of who you are. But the key is it clears out all that external rubbish that we think is so important in our lives.
And that's an interesting point you make too, that it clears out all that rubbish if you have a near death experience or some a Kundalini awakening. I didn't even mean to go here, but I was just thinking I've had a few guests that talk about plant medicines doing ayahuasca ceremonies, and they say, and I've never done it, but they say that it's similar to that. When you do that, these plant medicines, it almost is like it clears out all the rubbish and they see things in a new light.
And we can go back, in our age, I go back to the days when Timothy Leary was doing his thing,
Oh,
and that's essentially experimenting with this hallucinogen, and they all said the same thing. All the other stuff went away. It was mind expansion. Well, maybe, but what it did is all the rest of life just fell apart, and now you're seeing things without those markers, without those reference points in there. So of course you're going to create new markers, because that's what the brain is designed to do. It's always creating reference points and markers for us. So you clear all that junk out, the brain is doing some new things in there. It's the same thing that happens on a near-death experience. Everything is clear. You had nothing to hang on to, and you didn't realize that the brain doesn't just shut down at that moment. It's continuing to work. The soul is working. So now this and the soul, wherever the soul is connecting. And that didn't happen. You didn't allow that to happen previously, or there were so many distractions, you didn't even know it wasn't happening.
yeah, wow. Gosh, I think we could probably do an entire whole show just about this. But, another key spiritual element is being present in the now as much as possible. And I see you're a big proponent of living in the moment. How can doing so help enhance your life?
That's a brain training thing, and the way I tell people to get started is don't grab some huge exaggerated way to do this. Just look at what's in front of you. I've got this pen on the desk. Oh, that pen came from there, and I'm going to use it to do this. Put some conscious thought and do that with everything you can. Verbalize it. That's the other part. Make it an internal dialogue. I'm doing this today. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go in the other room and do this. Now that your mind is not, back up. The mind is the way the mind works is it wants to turn everything into an autopilot way to do things, because then it frees up thought to do everything else. So everything we do, the mind is going to try to restore, and then just you don't have to think about it. Then you can do new things. So to get started, just concentrate on what's right in front of you, but verbalize it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Of course, the biggest proponent in the modern world of living in the now is Eckhart Tolle.
Hmm.
That's the name of his book, Power of Now. I had a guest on a few shows ago, who woke up one morning, and he was stuck in the now, and he had never experienced it before, and it went on for weeks. I guess he was just in, but he thought he was going crazy. And here we have people, monks on on top of a mountain or wherever, Tibet, trying to be in the now all the time. And he actually went to therapists and everything, and they were going to give him drugs to do it. And finally, he said it went away. But I found that interesting. So many people seek to stay in the now, and he was afraid of it.
Yeah, the easiest way is it's self-verbalizations. We talk to ourselves all the time, but when it goes autopilot, the language, the internal language stops because it's not necessary. There are certain, I mean, somatic conditions in our body. We breathe, we excrete, we do all those things. It's all done automatically. We don't have to think about it. So that's where the brain typically works, but it works without verbalization. If you want to get into the present real easy, verbalize it. I'm doing this. I think I'll do this. If people hear you, they may think you're talking to yourself, but I just tell, I'll do that. I still do it today, and I'm pretty well grounded in what I'm doing at any given moment. I want all my energy where it's supposed to be, and thoughts of doing other things or what's going to happen later on. And, I have a power packed day today, beyond the interview with counseling people and another interview later and all those things. But I'm not thinking about any of that now. I did the preparation. Now I'm done. I will go from point to point. I will tell myself what I need to do in that point, and I will stay right in that moment. It's just how we talk to ourselves. That's all.
Yeah, and when you think about it, it's actually impossible for us to be anywhere but in the now, in the
That's where
moment.
the body is.
Right.
That's what I tell people. The body is where is in the present, but our mind has the capacity to go backward and forward. That's where we get in trouble. We go back and we ruminate over that didn't work out, and I hate that thing. And then, oh my God, what's going to happen if? And those two bookends make you crazy, right? And I always tell people the proof is think about something that causes you great anxiety. I'm going to move forward and this has to be done. Your worst thoughts are not while it's happening. Your worst thoughts are before it happens. As you prepare your mind for all the insanity and the damage that's going to happen and what you're going to lose and whatever it may be, then you get in and you're in the moment again, and your brain is designed to get you through the moment. If you can keep applying that thought, and I say to people all the time, this is going to happen. I say, just go do it. Stop thinking about it. Just go do it.
Yeah.
They'll come back the next week and they'll say, I did that. It wasn't really bad. I said, imagine if you could do it all the time.
Yeah.
It won't be bad all the time, most of the time.
Well, I guess Nike was way ahead of themselves back in the 70s and 80s when they came up with Just Do It, right?
Of course, Just Do It was buy their product, but that is not the point.
Well, you mentioned this already a couple times, autopilot. Now, you discuss how our daily routines and habits can be unhealthy for us mentally, and you call it living on autopilot. What about that?
Well, you know what? When you define autopilot, it's disengaging your brain from what you're doing, which again is not being in the moment. You just do things. You don't give it the proper thought, and then you find yourself in trouble. And so I'm just trying to get people to, in fact, disengage, to re-engage their brain. And I use the example of the autopilot on an airplane. The pilot doesn't want to think about flying. He pushes the button. The plane is now flying itself. He goes and does what he has to do, and then comes back. But we tend to like to live in that autopilot a lot because it keeps us from being accountable. It keeps us from doing things we prefer not to do, and we don't have to give thought to anything. I got my bowl of potato chips and the soda, the beer, whatever, and I'm going to go watch the movie, and it's, we don't want to think about that. Hey, look at what you're doing. I'm good. No, but if you sit down and say, Maybe a small bowl of potato chips, maybe something that's not loaded with sugar, then you don't enjoy it as much. So we just stay on autopilot and do what we want to do and not do what we don't want to do.
Well, that's so funny because, I read about last night in your book about the autopilot, and I got up this morning and right in my routine, get up, get the coffee going. Oh, feed the cat first, go to the bathroom, come out here, do my Course in Miracles reading in the morning. And just like I was on autopilot. I mean, I'm comfortable in it, but it can, like you said, it can really hinder your advancement as a human being.
You know what I tell people with that morning routine? I say, do all your things, but switch the order.
Yeah, yeah.
Something as simple as that. I'm going to get the coffee and then feed the cat. You know what? I think I'll feed the cat today, and then I'll get the coffee. And what it does, it just disengages autopilot. Is all it does.
Mhm.
It's no, there's no great turnaround in your life. But what it does is it tells your brain, let's just switch things around a little bit, and it engages it. It re-engages. And that's what conscious energy is all about, keeping it engaged. So I'll do that routinely. I'm supposed to do something, and I'll do it a little different today because we all have a morning routine. I mean,
Oh yeah,
we
yeah.
get started.
Well, I'm curious too because obviously you're very empirical in your research and your writing and everything. But personally, I mean, and we kind of I hit on this right away when I introduced you about spirituality. What does spirituality mean to you on a personal basis? Is it an integral part of your life, or has it become more or important, etc.?
Yeah. Uh, it continues to be refined. I've always been a very spiritual person. For me, there's prayer in my life all day long. There is an attempt always to deal with that concept I call pure love, which is uh, it's born of humility and gratitude. Wisdom. That's where and as you keep on working with those concepts, you connect deeper into spirituality. Humility is a huge way to get to spirituality because it removes ego, it removes anger, those types of things. So I work with those all day long. My goal is always to work as hard as I can to get to that spiritual part of myself, to get to that what I call higher order way of doing things. It's not all thought. Some of it is just a connection, and you feel it. So like when we meditate, it's the absence of thought typically that produces the connection. So I work on those things. I will meditate. I'll do those types of things. Let's bring the connection as deeply as I can.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love to hear that. So, in your chapter in your Fix Yourself Handbook, you have a chapter called "Brutal Honesty: The Real Test of Courage," in which you state, "Take an honest look inside yourself. There is someone special locked up in there, someone who doesn't need all the lies and games. Let them out." Now, I like this very much because one of my personal credos is. There's a champion waiting inside of each of us, waiting to be unleashed.
When I talk about brutal honesty, I talk about getting beyond your honest comfort level. How do you know you're honest? Typically, you're honest when it feels a little bit uncomfortable. That's what it's supposed to do. Honesty is not supposed to make you comfortable.
Mm.
Honesty should connect you with parts of yourself, much of it that's wonderful, but parts of yourself. It's like I liken it to peeling the onion. First two or three layers, no problem. Then you start smelling it. Then you start tearing up. It's a process of going deeper inside yourself. When you get to the point and you say, "Yeah, I'm honest about that," and you didn't feel anything, now you're taking the onion skin off. Let's get deeper. Let's go ask the questions. Let's challenge and go deep. And that's why I call it brutal honesty. It's uncomfortable. When you get to the point that you start feeling uncomfortable, now you know you're getting honest.
Yeah, that's so funny because just as I started, the thought came in my mind about peeling onions. You said it because yeah, it's one at a time, peeling the layers off and revealing the truth with the brutal honesty. Yeah.
And the way you do it is by challenging yourself. Yeah, you say, okay, this happened, and I'm pretty good. I think I did pretty well. Well, let me just ask some more questions. Did I do this? Should I have done that? How did I feel about this? How did that person feel? And I start asking questions. I go deeper and deeper and see if I get to some points where I'm not so comfortable. Now I'm hitting that honesty. It's not about having to go do anything. You have to tell anybody what you're uncovering, but it's all about the processes. That's what I'm big on, the processes of doing it, the exercise of consistently challenging yourself. Let me get past where I think that comfort zone is. That's that old thing where we say we all say we're honest until we're put in a position where we have to face ourselves. I just want the process of continuing to scratch the surface, of continuing to go deeper. So whether it's about spirituality or it's that autopilot or it's brutal honesty, it's always go a little deeper. Take another layer off, see what you get. So honesty falls right in with that.
Yeah, and everything you're saying right there is something that you literally have to take yourself off of autopilot in order to do what you're talking about. Then you can grasp onto the concept and integrate it into your life.
Absolutely. And after a while, when you're doing this, then it's not about getting comfortable anymore. You really like the processes. You and I were talking before we started the interview about working out. You just did. I'm just going to go down and do that. There's a point in there where if we get comfortable, we just do it. The body will stay at that level, may even be somewhat healthy, but we didn't go a little deeper. Let me see how far I can go. I don't want to hurt myself, but I want to get to the point where I understand my capabilities just a little bit better. That's all this is. That's really what it is. In everything we do, let's take it just a little deeper and see what I can do.
Mhm. Well, I have to be honest, there are days sometimes I come back home and I just think, why the heck does life have to be so complicated and convoluted? I mean, you can be a student and a teacher like you are and whatever. And there are times when it just gets to you. Why is this? Is our ego constantly shouting in our ears, trying to keep us off balance and get us off the rails?
Number of things. First of all, I think we go way too fast. We have an accelerated society. Not only do we live in an accelerated world, we champion that and we accelerated ourselves. So nothing good happens that fast, not internal, not with your consciousness or your soul. That's the first thing we do. Lots of outside influences, lots of acquisitions, and the process of acquisition. I call it the acquisition merry-go-round. We get on and I got to get this and I have to get this, oh my God, the new iPhone's out. Well, mine's only a year and a half old, but now this came out and I'm going to spend another whatever, but I have to get it. And it's not even getting it. It's I have to, it's that pressure that we put on ourselves to do it. Life is no longer simple. It's the old, the picture where you see the person sitting on the bench and looking over the countryside with a cup of whatever they're drinking and relaxing, or the hammock, that kind of thing. It's that simple thing we want to put into our lives. We want to challenge ourselves. We want to accomplish, we want to do some things, but my God, we have so much junk piled on top of this. And then the other thing is we're performance related. What did I do today? What did I accomplish today? And if I didn't measure up to whatever is where we didn't measure up to. We just dump so much stuff on top of our world that it's hard to breathe after a while.
Well, and you're absolutely right on that, because in the modern society, in the world, we're all going 1,000 miles per hour, and with technology and AI, that has increased that so much. But what I have learned is that, again, what goes back to our earlier conversation, that everything is energy. You just can't change that frequency like that. You may for a second, but it's going to go back to, so if you're vibrating at a lower level, it's going to take a while to move up to a higher vibrating, conscious, loving place. It's kind of the classic example of the old, you and I are old enough to remember the radios that have these big knobs to change the channel. And you couldn't push a button to go from 89.7 to 106. 107.9, you had to take this big knob and turn it slowly and
That
slowly
darn thing went so slow across.
until you finally got to 107.9, and then you still had to fine tune it. So it was a process of changing the vibrational frequency. And that's the same way our life is. It takes a little while. I mean, if you've been vibrating in a negative, disempowering place for 50 years, you're not going to change it in a month.
No, and the other thing you're doing is your body and your mind, they're going to fight against you with all these things. The body, as you know, it always looks for homeostasis, always looks for that balance. And the example I always use is a pendulum. You swing it back and forth, but it wants to come back to center and be balanced. That's the way, that's the natural course for a human being, physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. It wants to be balanced, and we keep pushing it to one side or the other. Typically, it's one side. We're one-sided people. We want to go there, but the pendulum it can't stay up that long, and we are now forcing our will on our lives, on our environment, on our spirituality. We're forcing our will and saying, no, I want it up here, and then it comes crashing down. It's going to, because that's the natural state of things. You go up a little bit, you come back down. You go up, you come back down again. That's always the way life is supposed to flow. Our bodies, our minds, our emotions, our souls were never meant to be impacted this much and for such long periods of time. We go up, we come back down. That's the part we have to understand. We don't like coming back down.
And like you said, we go up, we come down. It's just like a sine wave of energy, peak, valley, a peak. And people like you and students who study these things and teachers, and it's not like even the gurus on the mountains, they still come down in a valley occasionally where they're in, not a good feeling place. But with what we understand and study, we don't stay in the valley as long. We are able to bring ourselves back up to the peak and stay there for longer periods of time. I think that's very key.
Yeah, it is. It's just your ability to catch your breath. And when you're in that catching your breath mode, that also gives you a chance to look and say, okay, how is this all looking? It's sort of like, you're painting your living room. You're up and you're up the whole time, and then you say, I gotta take a break. But then when you take a break, you walk away and you look at it and say, how is this? Does it look good? Did I miss a spot there? Maybe I change a color over there. That gives you a chance to appraise your what you're doing and make some changes or stop it altogether. It gives you a chance to look at things over. We're not doing, it's another thing we're not doing. We are so intent on keeping the momentum that we don't understand how it's like working out. We don't work out the same body parts as to maximum potential every day. We're going to get hurt. We switch it up. We take days of rest. That rest period is essential and rest isn't just, I'm going to go and get on Facebook or watch a movie. That's not what I'm talking about. It's taking a break from the acceleration process and the acquisition process and all this external stuff. It's take a break from that, come back and little introspection, meditation, prayer, whatever you do, get back to yourself and let that happen. Just let it happen.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Yeah, I'm glad you stated that too. One of the key teachings of the Modern Spiritual Guide, A Course in Miracles, is forgiveness. And this is why I like your chapter, Redefining Your Life Through Forgiveness. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. I always talk about two kinds of forgiveness. When we think about forgiveness, we always think about that other person. Well, that person did this or traumatized me or abused me, and I have to forgive that person. The first person we forgive is always ourselves, not in terms of who abused us, but in terms of what we do every day. We get into the mode of forgiveness. I did that. I should have done that a little better. Maybe I need to apologize to that person. Let me set that straight so I don't carry that weight and that negative energy with me. Then we talk about how we forgive other people. We don't want to carry the past. The past is dead. It's gone. It doesn't have life anymore. We keep giving it life. And then we wonder why we're so bogged down. Something happened 20 years ago. The key is to go settle it one way or another. If you need help, go to counseling, whatever you need to do, settle that so that you're not taking that forward, because the combination of what I do, and that weighs me down, and I'm carrying some guilt maybe, and the past that I'm bringing forward takes the energy and a lot of it and moves it away from conscious thought, from spirituality, from all the things I want to be able to do. We've got to be able to let go. It's not about letting the person off the hook. It's about not letting that event come forward and keep just putting me on the cross every time I think about this.
I like that you mentioned that you have to forgive yourself first, because that's kind of like the Hawaiian spiritual practice of ho'oponopono, where you actually, by saying "I love you," "I'm sorry," "Please forgive me," "Thank you," that you are forgiving yourself over and over and over. And as you do that, I mean, basically, you kind of explained it in different terms, but things around you change, as you forgive yourself in whatever way you choose to do it.
And you know what, the other thing it does, and it's a very important uh, part of this, is it takes the arrogance out of your life. We have a horrible problem with arrogance, and we think arrogance is the guy that's in your face and screaming and I know everything. Arrogance is something that's that. There's a subtle form of arrogance where we believe we've got it where it's supposed to be. We shouldn't have to forgive ourselves. Well, that person did things to me before, or whatever it may be. We have reasons why we don't forgive. Well, that keeps us in an arrogant frame of mind. Arrogance takes a tremendous amount of energy to maintain every day,
Mhm.
and it disconnects you from rational thought, from your spirit, from humility, from wisdom. I always tell people, you cannot ever acquire wisdom if you are arrogant, because arrogance stops you from being the student. And to be wise, you have to retain the gift of studenthood constantly. Otherwise, wisdom can't live. Wisdom doesn't have a destination. Wisdom is a constant evolving process. That's so arrogance gets in the way of that. We don't forgive people. We've taken that energy and put it there when we can take it, we can put it into the process of acquiring wisdom through gratitude and humility and love. We don't do that. And it's hard to love when you can't forgive.
Yeah, and that's a very wise observation on your part. I think one that we could all feel that we could integrate into our life. Again, wow, this has been a great conversation talking to Faust Ruggiero. He's a professional psychologist, author of, well, the first book, Fix Yourself Handbook. Do you have three more, I think?
Yeah, I followed that with Fix Your Anxiety Handbook. Fix Your Depression Handbook was third, and I'm just completing the Fix Your Anger Handbook now. Same designs as the flagship book, as the first book, and so we're gonna do about 7 or 8 books in the series, and just try to get people to the point where you can start working through some of these things and get to that spiritual part of your life that that's so essential to being happy.
Well, and I think that is so cool because, your lifetime of study and research, people can get all eventually 7 chapters, and they are handbooks. I mean, if you're having an issue in your day, pull one off your shelf and, okay, here's how I can deal with that. Well, I have one last question for you, and I'm just curious about this because many of the people I talk to, my colleagues around the world, I have a question about the ego. I have had friends say, "Well, the ego is your friend. It's just watching out for you." But is ego really our friend, or is it really a foe?
Yeah, the old classic Freudian interpretation, where you get between the rational mind and the id, which wants everything at once, it mediates. It depends on how you look at ego. If you're looking at it in that respect, where it's really essentially is my rational mind, that makes sense. But we have that other interpretation of ego, which is I'm above, don't attempt to tell me what to do, that whole arrogant part of things. So the first part of ego, if it's going to be a mediator for you, you want to call it that, but then I would actually throw the term ego out. I
Mm,
don't use it
mm,
just because. people misinterpret what we're saying. I talk about mediating with letting your brain mediate for your emotions. Emotions tend to be more primal, more attached to that part of our existence, or they can be, and just try to rationalize through things, be able to stay in the moment, be able to get better at fact finding and get to the right interpretation of things. That's really what we're talking about here. Not where right, what's right.
Wow, this is just a ridiculously great conversation. Thank you, man. I just love this deep dive into all this stuff. It's so awesome. Now, you have a website, just simply faustruggiero.com. And I think on there you have something called the Fix Yourself Power Zone. And that's where people can go and get to know you a little bit more.
That's all what this is all about, empowering yourself with all the types of things we've been talking about today. So you can go there. Excerpts from the books are there. My media interviews are there. Contact link is there. By all means, feel free to contact me. I do get back to people.
Okay, excellent. I was going to ask if people could just connect with you somehow, but I will have all the links to your website and your books in the show notes of this show. And Faust, it's been way more fun than I thought. I didn't know if I'd be able to keep up with you. You're so smart. I'll tell you, it's just awesome. But I really, really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for being on World Awakenings.
It has been my pleasure, Carl. It's a great show, and I'm glad to be part of it.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Carl Gruber, a certified Law of Attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.